So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second session of Women in Tech, a business perspective. The objective of this session is to debate around the role of women in business in general, but in the technology sector in particular. For this, we have invited here to the stage to Mireia Vila and Elena Faro. Thank you very much for being here. Let me briefly introduce them. Mireia graduated from the Bachelor in Business Administration at Esade. She has held program manager positions at several companies, including Accenture and Heineken. And she is currently the IT director for PepsiCo in Southwest Europe and Turkey. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
And Elena obtained her bachelor's degree in economics and business administration from the Autonomous University in Madrid. She started her professional career at Ericsson. She joined BBVA in 2007, where she has conducted a notorious career, and she is currently the global head of data and advanced analytics at the client solutions area.
Thank you so much, Irene.
Okay, so I'd like to start by having you tell us a little bit about your professional journey. So you both have a background in business, but then you moved towards the technology sector. So what motivated this interest in technology for both of you?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start. So in my case, I started my career 17 years ago working in consulting at Accenture. And at that point in time, I have to say, I was really looking for a high-paced environment with changes and different experiences, different companies. So the motivation was less on technology, but more around the experiences that you will gain. I remember the first month I was there, I was pulled into a kind of a boot camp where we were teach on how to program in JavaScript at that moment on time and ABAP. Also, we had to build our on-site e-commerce and other technical stuff that we learned. And to be honest, for me, it was a bit overwhelming at that moment on time. But I really took it as a learning experience in that sense. And a month later, I was given the experience to build an SAP written solution for Accenture that we had really to define in terms of processes, build a solution, and then start selling all over the world. It was a good experience, and that brought me into my international career, 5 years in US, 1 year in China, another year in Canada, and after that, moving into an end user company as Heineken. But overall, my starting or my interest in technology was really by coincidence, by being there in a moment where technology was starting to pop up. And over the times and over the years, I still have this passion for technology, but it's mainly because of the level of transformation and probably change that this is bringing into our lives, in the way that we consume with online channels, in the way that we communicate with our smartphones, in the way that we work from our houses. So being part of this transformation and being on the front line is what really inspires me.
Very interesting. So in my case, I've always been interested in technology. And in fact, thinking of my path in high school, it was on science. But then when I was 18, and for anybody that is 18 here, anybody? Okay. No, I have to say that when you are 18, you know nothing about what is ahead. And the decisions that you take are, well, with the information that you have. No? And at that moment, I was going to take a technical career. But last minute, I decided to take a business path because I didn't want to get it too into a specific sector. So it's kind of scared me to go to, I was going to take telco engineering. My second choice was, I remember, mathematics. But then I decided to go for a business administration career to be more, open to any experience. But I was very much into technology by that time already, no? So then I started working at Ericsson, almost by chance. But I also was very much into mobile phones, etc. So it was exciting for me at that time when I was 22. I stayed there for 10 years. So I've, developed a career very much related to being in the middle between business and engineers. So that is something that I realized that I liked a lot from the very beginning, because I think that even today there is a huge gap between the technology language and the business language. And I think that is going to continue. So I think there is a very good opportunity for people to take these intermediate careers to connect business and technology. And then I left Ericsson and I got into BBVA in technology, directly into technology area and innovation. And then more or less in 2011, by chance, I started up a project related to data, to the usage of data that the bank was producing for new usages. And until today, so I've been already in data for 10 years, and I can tell you that this is the most exciting field to be in, but I am not a native data person. No, okay, I've been 10 years already, well, sort of, but I am not, I don't have the background as, for instance, Irene has on data, but I can tell you that it's amazing. And why I like technology? Well, I think Mireia explained, no? I think that if you want to be where the future is being shaped and the evolution of the society happens, technology and science is the place to be.
Okay, thank you very much. So definitely, let's say technology is the future, but apparently, even if the sector itself is the future, is not counting on women for the evolution, let's say. So let me give you some numbers. We already discussed them yesterday, but I think it's good to emphasize them. So even if women make up nearly half of the global workforce, women hold just 30% of tech-related positions. And these numbers are even worse when we look at leadership positions in tech, where women represent roughly at 22%. When we look at other sectors, however, the women representation on average is around 30% of the boardroom. So there seems to be an inequality there on aggregated numbers. Of course, when we look at specific populations like women of color, then the numbers are even worse. So before we go into, let's say, deeper into the causes behind this, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what do you think are the reasons why this happens, why there is such a difference in numbers between men and female in management positions.
Okay, we are talking about management positions, but I think we should go a step back in that sense, because where we have like the first gap is really on the graduates, female graduates on STEM careers. And there we see very low numbers, like 11% recent studies. So for me, like the first topic to tackle is how can we improve this number of graduates so we ensure as companies we can really pull on the talent that is in the market. Otherwise, we have challenge to find really like talent that can be appropriate for this type of positions. Then maybe the other topic, right? I mean, what is the main barrier? I would say inequality is there when we look leadership positions as a whole, not only on the tech sector. Unfortunately, we only need to see leadership, let's say executive teams from most of the IBEX companies, and you will see that diversity is not even present there. So for me, that's the other level to tackle. And the how, I think that there's a lot of different causes that can be there, right? And maybe for me, like the most significant one is unconscious bias. Usually we tend to make decisions based on people that is similar to us. And what happens today is that most of the leadership positions are held by male in most of the companies. Therefore, whenever there's like a recruitment decision that needs to be made, a promotion, it's much easier to recruit or promote someone that is equal to this person that in that sense is much more male. So I would say like unconscious bias is a very powerful like topic that we need to treat very carefully, because that could really help us to accelerate and really make the next step in terms of breaking this glass ceiling.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you say. This is a very complex topic, no? Because it's probably there are lots of causes. It's not only one single thing that you can just tackle and then there you go, no? And those things are interconnected, no? We have social structure reasons, history reasons. The bias that you mentioned is crucial and it's there. And I would like to say that it's not only men that tend to go for people that are similar to them. This happens to all of us. When you meet people, you tend to be closer to people that are similar to you, and we have to fight against those bias in any sector. It is true that being males, the majority in management positions, then that makes this problem even bigger, no? So we can discuss each of these problems, but what I would like to emphasize also is that this is taking a long time. No, this is going too slow, but also thinking of for how long have we been really interested into this problem. is not that much. So I was thinking, for instance, in my company that is today in all the rankings of equality, diversity, so it's very well positioned. I know that we have a lot of initiatives that are very well defined, people working on these specific teams dedicated to diversity, and this has been going on for 5 years. So even the reference today have been doing this only for 5 years. And on the other hand, as we see that this is something that is very, very slow to be moved, then we have a huge problem because it's gonna take us. I don't know. I was the other day talking to my daughter that I will refer a couple of times probably later. She's 13, and she was telling me, why do we have this Women's Day every year? No, we can stop doing that because where's the problem? No, and I said, look, Lucia, you have to think that in your lifetime you won't see payment equality at the pace where we are closing the pay gap. You won't even see it in your lifetime, which is it's very dramatic. So let's discuss the different problems one by one. But for me, the dramatic thing is that this is going to take forever if we don't act soon.
Well, hopefully it won't, and we will act in time. Okay, so I wanted you to tell us a little bit about your own experience. So we often talk about the barriers women face, but it's often hard, even for us, to realize, to know what those barriers are, or to even tell other people about our experience. So did you think you faced those in your life, in your professional life? Were you aware of them?
Well, in my case, I have to say I never had like these barriers in terms of like my male colleagues because I have to say they treat me very well. I have been fortunate in that sense, and I always like felt very much supported and with great collaboration overall. So, from that standpoint, no barriers as such. However, I think that there's a moment in time that you realize, and especially when you move over the ranks and when you have your first leadership positions, that you are there sitting in a room plenty of males, right? And that's the moment that you realize that you need to change your style to be able to achieve your goals or to be able to achieve the things that you would like to move within the organization. So for me, it has been much more like dealing with this sense of being different in early stages of my career and being able to overcome that. Because what happens is when you adapt your style to be able to fit other styles, you are not being authentic with yourself and you are not being consistent on the way that you feel, the way that you do things. And this is really causing an inconsistency for yourself. And at the end of the day, it's not making you feel happy at work. Therefore, I think it's very important that when we face these barriers, we accept that these are there, but we always try to be authentic and consistent with our values, with our principles, and with our leadership style. Because at the end of the day, our difference is what is bringing value to the organization and is also what would have a positive impact on yourself and your well-being at the end of the day.
Yeah, as well as Mireia, I cannot say, I mean, it would be unfair if I say that I have found those barriers, to be honest, no? It is true that, as well as you, no, you find yourself in a room full of men all the time, or most of the time, and this is, I mean, this is what it is, and you have to live with that, and you get used, no? So I mean, I don't see that as a problem, but I think that probably, and at least in my case, maybe in yours also, having been always connected to big corporations, maybe makes the problem smaller because the big corporation they have been interested or at least focusing on this for longer, no? For many reasons, because they realize that it's better for their business, but also because of reputational issues. They focus on this because if they do something, wrong in this aspect, they will be on the news. But if you go to the startups world or to the small and medium companies world, I know for sure that the situation is not that like that. So, for instance, in my company, as I said before, there is a team dedicated to diversity, especially focused on women diversity or gender diversity. You don't find that in any startup or company. So I've been very close to the world of fintech startups, for instance, and I see that the problem is pretty dramatic there. So yeah, I don't see it in myself, but the problem is there, and I mean, we have to act.
I think this also came up yesterday during the session. The women here were telling us, I'm not aware of these barriers. Like, maybe I faced them, but I didn't know about them. But the issue still stands. Then it happens to all of us, I think, that whenever you enter into a room, sometimes you're the only woman. And they were telling us, I feel lonely because of this, but also I feel the need to legitimize my place here. And maybe my male partners don't feel this need to legitimize why I'm the only woman here. I don't know if this was your experience too, if you ever felt like this idea of loneliness, and also the need to tell them why I deserve this position.
So in my case, I think the thing is that as I started in a company that it comes from Sweden, I think that was crucial because, I mean, as you probably know, the Nordic societies are much more advanced in this sense. And maybe I am generalizing here, but it's what I felt, no? Than other societies. No? And I can tell you that when I moved from Ericsson to a Spanish company, I felt the difference. No? Although we have evolved a lot. So the fact that I started in an environment that was healthy in that sense, so made me feel like everything was pretty normal. And there were women also pursuing very technical careers surrounding me. So I didn't see that as something that was an exception. Then when I moved to another type of company, I realized that it was an exception, but not at the beginning of my career. So my take here is that if you can be in an environment that is safe, it's very easy to get used and to take it as normal.
Yeah, fully agree with your point, Elena. And on my case, as I said before, for me it was more about adapting and adjusting to really make things happen. Because at the end of the day, it's not barriers as such, but it's much more around how you can speed up and how you can make things happen in that context. It's true that in my case, I was moving from more a US environment, company-based Accenture, and when I moved to Heineken, like a Dutch corporation, it was a completely different style from a cultural standpoint, right? Because there's levels of more like competition, also like a straightforward talking and thinking. So there were also like a level of adaptation that maybe it was not because of diversity as such, but also a cultural aspect that you need to balance there. And in my case, it was more about this adaptation rather than really having like the feeling of I need to justify my position, myself. It was more about adaptation of this leadership style.
Okay, so regarding adaptation too, no? So whenever women, not only in the tech sector but in general, access leadership positions, there's the issue of how you reconcile your work life and your family life. And have you perceived differences about how you approach this issue, you women towards the other members of the boardroom, for example?
Yeah, well, that is crucial. No, that I mean, probably this is one of the biggest reasons why we are where we are today. No, and for me, of course, a lot can be done from policy, from governments, from companies. But for me, the starting point is at home. So, if at home you have your relationship at home, and when you have kids is in an equal terms, then probably your husband will demand conciliation policies also in his company or in his work, and that will make everybody realize that this is the way to go. Again, I remember when I started at Ericsson that this already happened there. For instance, the maternity and paternity leaves are 1 year for male and for female, mandatory. So that means that nobody loses their position because they have a baby, because men and women all go on leave. Also, the idea that somebody in a meeting would say at 5 p.m., I have to go because I have my daughter's play is running now. Imagine, 15 years ago, it was like in Spain, it was like, come on, you're going. And in Sweden, it was, they clap. You have to go. So there is a huge evolution that we need to take there. But if there is equality at home, that for me is the starting point for you to realize that you don't have to put your career at risk because somebody else has to pursue their own. And again, a lot has to be done in maternity and paternity leaves, in conciliation policies in companies. But if you don't have this at home, then it's almost impossible.
And let me add here, I think pandemic, as you said, really has accelerated and has put, the importance of mental health and the importance of work-life balance that is very crucial for all of us. But I would like to say that there's a topic, even a step back, I would say, that is more a self-reflection of our priorities, right? I mean, I think equality is important at home, but what do we want, right? what do we want to achieve and what are our priorities in every moment of our life, because this is evolving and there are moments in our career, maybe at the beginning or when we have a change on roles, where we know that this balance will be a bit more difficult and that we will need to have a sacrifice and an effort, because we want to have this as a successful position, as a successful first experience. So knowing where we are in our life in each vital moment, I think is fundamental. And knowing also what are our key priorities, what are the things that are adding to this value, and what are the things that we are going to say no very clear. These are the things that would really help us to have a focus, clarity, and ultimate to have a better work-life reconciliation.
Yeah, but let me add, for instance, in the situations of having to travel, no? So you can say yes or no, but this yes or no is biased by the fact that, okay, if I leave, my kids don't eat, taking it to the extreme, okay? I've seen situations where, okay, if I go on a trip, colleagues of mine told me, I have to prepare food for 3 days, put it on the fridge, and then I leave, and then we'll see if they go to the extrascolares, no? Because who knows? No, so if I had that situation, which I'm lucky because I don't, because I met my husband at work, so we've been, evolving together. But if this is the case, then I would say maybe my priority is that my kids go to the extra classes and that they eat healthy that week. I am taking, of course, this to the extreme, to
No, exactly. And let me add here, Elena, I think it depends on the moment that you are. Because maybe imagine, I moved like 5 years ago from the Netherlands to Barcelona. I changed countries, I changed roles, I changed like companies. So for me, that was a critical moment. I had to really focus much more on my work rather than my family, right? I had that very clear. And I made this compromise. So when I had to leave my child because I was traveling, I was not feeling guilty because of that, because I understood that was the moment I had to dedicate. And I knew that a year later I could have a better balance. And nowadays I can go and have my child every day in the school, and that's not a problem, right? But I think knowing every moment where you are and being able to let go of things without feeling guilty, I think is very important.
fully agree.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I suggest we try to take a step back and try to think how we came to be where we are right now. No, so Mireia, you were telling us before about how women represent a minority in STEM careers. Why would that be? Well, like, what is the reason why women are not that interested in those careers? You think?
So I'm going back to my 13-year-old girl to try to explain, because for me this is quite puzzling, no? To try to understand why this happens, no? And when I was coming here, she asked me again yesterday, why are you going to Barcelona? I'm going to talk about women and technology. And she was like, qué pesadas. So I'm fed up with this, mommy. Last month they came to school on the 11th of February, and somebody came and told us you have to do science careers, blah blah blah. And she was like, and I was like, I'm worried, because I mean I want her to do something related to technology. Of course, she can do whatever she wants, but I would like her to be interested, and I'm worried, no? And then I realized that when we speak about this as a general concept, so let's do technical careers. You know the problem. If we don't have enough women in these positions, then the world has a problem. And we go for generics, and we don't talk that much about the real applications. Because when I try to explain her, look, Lucia, your recommendations in TikTok or in Spotify, do you want to know how they happen? And then we go into that field of data, which is my field. And then she's very, very much interested, and she asks, and the following day she comes and says, look, I explained this to a colleague at school, to a friend, and she wants to know this. And I've realized that they're recommending me this because of this or that, and then it's, okay, you're getting it. So I think we are focusing too much on the generics, because we, older women see that as a problem of the world, but this is not what is moving younger girls into action. So for me, that is one of the first things that we should do. Of course, we can talk about role models, etc. But which is connected, of course. But this is one of the key problems. They are not seeing why it is so exciting to be in this world on the one hand, and why they should play a role in it.
No, and I think that's a very good point. It reminds me that this morning I also mentioned to my child of 8 years old, and he said, "Again, you are going to these speeches about women in technology." I mean, hopefully there's a point where we don't need to talk about that, and that will be normalized. But this is not yet there. But yes, I will pick like the point around the role modeling because I think that's an interesting one. And indeed, we don't have role models that are close to us because usually when we talk about STEM careers, always is about Marie Curie. It's like the great ones that have like a Nobel Prize. To be honest, for me, Marie Curie, it's a lot of respect, but it feels very far away from my reality. I prefer to see Elena here, someone with a business background that moved into a technology world that I can really relate on my day to day. So I think that there's like a big here challenge on how can we have like more real and close role models that can really inspire and can really motivate like young generations to also study technology and STEM careers. And I think that here we have like a lot of opportunities, especially with mentoring programs. As part of PepsiCo, we participate in a STEM Talent Girl, where we are coaching and also helping like young ladies to really get this interest on the STEM career. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do and that could help us really to improve and to make the tech world more appealing to them.
There are also lots of stereotypes that even in the youngest generation they are there because they are on the cinema, on the movies, on the songs, on the games, on the media, and I don't think we are doing a great job there because still very young girls see a person that has done IT as a guy that is in his room programming on his own with no social life, and she wants a social life. No, so
Okay, so and other than the issue of the career we choose, so under graduation, there also seems to be an issue with how we access leadership positions. No, so there's been some talk recently about how job listings, the language we use when we write down job offerings are gender biased, let's say, and that women tend to undermine their skills, their capacity to access those jobs. So you think this is the case, that we tend to not have that much confidence on what we can do?
Well, I can go with this one. And I would say it's a combination between perfectionism and confidence, let's say. We are very much perfectionist, and what we have seen is that for same position, like the women need to have 90% of the requirements checked before applying into a position. When for a male, this is around 60% of the same criteria. So that means that maybe we need to let go a bit of this perfectionist and take a bit more risk and have more confidence on our abilities and our aspirations in that sense. But it's true. I think that this is a key element. And for example, at PepsiCo, we have been working very much on the recruitment campaigns to ensure that the language and the terminology that we are leveraging in the job descriptions is made much more inclusive. Otherwise, we cannot really attract, especially female talent. So that's one of the topics that we are trying to improve, apart from the fact of presenting like 50-50 quotas on gender in final stages of the recruitment process. But indeed, I think during my experience of mentoring for more than 10 years, confidence is popping up as the key topic that as women we need to resolve, and that we really need to ensure that we have more trust on our competences and our abilities.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. This is there, and well, we can say that it is a lack of confidence in women or an excess of confidence in men. So the problem is in both sides. But the truth is that there is a gap here that is playing against us. And again, and I'm going to say this 100 times, we are generalizing here. It's probably the average is happening where we are explaining here. There are, of course, people that are not like that in both genders, but this is true. And well, in the case of BBVA, we have also worked with this idea of rewriting some of the job postings. And we did an experiment changing some words. Like, for instance, if you have the word expertise, deep experience, terms like that, women tend to back up. But they don't apply because they don't see themselves enough for those positions, no? And at the same time, I've seen and I've interviewed men that were, I mean, they were not even 10% ready for them. So again, specific persons. But here we have a problem. I think that we have the impostor syndrome, if that exists. I think we have that much more. I don't think that that is a bad thing because that, at least in my experience, which I have a little bit that, and I felt that, especially working in a field where I am not trained for that field from the very beginning. So I felt that, but I think that that keeps you alert. So I wouldn't say that we should get rid of that. I think that these men should also have a little bit of this because that keeps you alert, keeps you learning and listening to people and trying to find help from other people. But the problem is there, and it's, I mean, for me, it's too obvious. Again, in mentoring, it's like, no. I have to take these 3 courses before I can do this. And in the same situation, male were like, okay, I can take them if I need them, but let's do it, no? And we are behind here.
Okay, so let us move to something else now. So I think it's good that we raise awareness on this issue, but I think it's also good that we emphasize why having women is important for company. Not just important, but good too. So I was reading the other day that the European Institute of Gender Equality has estimated that improving gender equality can increase the European GDP per capita, like can bring an increment of around 10%. So it's not just an issue of social justice, but if that weren't reason enough, let's say it's also an issue ultimately of revenue too, of profit. So what do you think are the opportunities that having more women can bring to the tech sector?
I think a lot of opportunities, and the most obvious one is the greater innovation, right? At the end of the day, we have different points of view. Diversity is bringing more collaboration and richness of ideas. Therefore, as a consequence, there's better innovation within the teams. Another one, and I was reading yesterday a study from Harvard Business Review that said that diverse teams are adding or are faster in solving like complex problems, while similar teams will be much more slower in that. Therefore, there's a clear correlation between diversity and better results also in companies. And the way that we understand it, for example, at PepsiCo, is that diversity is not really a moral imperative anymore, it's really a business imperative. And we could list more benefits. Clearly, there's a topic around attraction and retention of talent. A lot of people, and 50% of us probably, when we have to change jobs, we are looking what are the diversity policies of this company. We are looking what configuration of the executive board is present in terms of diversity. Therefore, clearly, diversity is a decision-making process within like a change of a job. And if we embed, and I think you mentioned before, Elena, if we embed different opinions and we are really having and listening to everyone's voice, for sure, we can retain this talent in a much better way. Therefore, there's also strict correlation on how are we retaining and attracting talent that in today's world is probably one of the most critical things.
Yeah, so I fully agree that diversity is a business goal. It has to be a business goal, and it is already in many companies. In my company, it has been a business goal, not for very long, for 3 years, but it's part of the evaluation that especially managers have. So this is important. Companies will do better if they are diverse. Full stop, no? But then taking a step further, no? And thinking of what are the ways of being or traits that we are more present in women, again, generalizing, and not that much in men, and the other way around. I think we have a lot to learn from each other, no? And for instance, in my experience, teams led by women probably are more focused, and I'm going to be very pesada here, no? But generalizing, no? That focus on the goals of the team and on the well-being of the team, maybe more than on the specific goals for that year for the business, which of course are crucial and very important, but I think we tend to take care of emotional well-being of teams more than men. And this is very important for long-term goals. Maybe not for that quarter goals, no? But for long-term goals, for retention, it's crucial, no? And I would like also to talk about one thing that I think is very important, which is the concept of vulnerability. I think that we are less scared to be vulnerable in the sense of if I don't know something, I can say, I don't know this. If I need help, I can tell I need help. I think that today, this capacity, we can call it a capacity, is much better for building trust than not showing yourself vulnerable. Maybe 30 years ago it was different. So I normally advise men to show themselves vulnerable because they are, and hiding their vulnerability is preventing them to build trusted relationships with their teams and with their colleagues. So again, this here I see something that is maybe more standard in women that I don't see that much in men. And of course, there are things in men that maybe we should take also, as what we mentioned before, the confidence, maybe the risk aversion. I also see a difference there. And I've seen a lot this in startups, no, led by men because they are less risk averse than we are. Let's face it. So I think that together we can make up teams that are much more powerful.
In relation to what Elena was saying, Mireia, would you also say too that like women and men have different managing styles in this sense? Yeah.
Yes, with no doubt, I would say. And a female style, and I think you were describing very well, is much more based on empathy, on collaboration, much more focused on people itself, right? And you said showing this vulnerability. In the case of men, it's much more, or has been traditionally, because I think, to be honest, it's changing for the good in that sense, but has been much more focused on results and much more focused on the taking risk, networking. Men are better than women in networking as well, and this is a very important element to move across the ranks, which I really encourage all the ladies that we have here to start doing better networking in that sense. So I think that there's like certain elements that for sure we do in a different way, and that the right combination of both is what we need to be able to lead the 21st century company. So it's not excluding one or the other, it's really getting the best of both worlds.
Also, I wanted to add that all these traits that we are describing here, they are not exclusive for men and women. All of us can have all of them, I'm sure. But for some reasons, we are not there today, but we have to think of this when we think of our own development.
So regarding what can be done, no? Because I look around here and we are three women talking about women in tech, and the majority of the audience here is made up by women. So what can we do? Like, what role should men play in this change? What do we do to bring them along? What can?
Well, I think that men play a critical and fundamental role in this journey, and it's great to have all the women, but also we see some male, which is very positive as well. And I would say that it's playing both directions, right? I think at the organizational level, men play a fundamental role in terms of encouraging women to progress and to succeed on their careers, from recruitment, from promotions standpoint, and what we discussed before around, mitigating this unconscious bias. So this is a clear fundamental role. The other part is at home, as Elena very well indicated before, right? Really having this support network at home, encouraging the partner to really pursue their dreams and make sure that that there's a support at home is also fundamental. So for me, it's a combination of what can be done in both worlds, in the real working environment, but also at home.
Yeah, well, I think it's been said, no, but they have to see this, and I think that this is already happening. Not as something that is altruistic and to be good citizen, and then I should be doing this. Is because they will be much better off by being more open, no? And their companies will be better also. No, but to summarize it a lot, and you mentioned, Mireia, there are two things: bias and home. Tackling these two things would change. I think it would change things dramatically.
Yes, but however, in relation to this, we were talking before about the barriers, no? So we said like women tend to have it harder, let's say, to get to some positions. That means like the flip coin of that is that men tend to have it easier, but they're not aware of that privilege in general. So whenever we try to make a change towards that, they would feel it as it going against them, let's say. No? So do we convince them that they should be part of this? That it's not going against their interests, but the other way around.
What we did at PepsiCo, if that helps, right? We roll out a global training around unconscious bias, and all the management positions were having this training. It was a very intense training, like 3 different sessions, like half days. And at the end of the day, we could prove that in a year time, the number of promotions in females increased in 7%. So really education here, like reading and the curiosity of understanding what does this mean, how can I help, is already a first step to start changing things. So I would say that this is a fundamental item that we need to ensure. Another topic that from an organizational standpoint we can do is to embrace and include diversity as one of the key objectives. that you will be measured at the end of the year. And this is something that we are doing already in the corporate world. So we have, in our case, corporate goal of achieving like 2025 parity, by 2025, 50% parity in management positions. And all the management team and all the mid-management positions have this as an objective. So at the end of the year, you will be measured what have you done to increase this diversity objective. So there are different ways that we can incorporate in the organizations to make sure that we progress on this objective, and especially to ensure that we are not staying here forever talking about women and in the technology world.
Yeah, well, in BBVA, we also have this unconscious bias training that has been mandatory for the whole organization. It's very much focused on gender bias, but also in other types of diversity, of course. And well, one other policy that we implemented in 2017 already is what is called the Rooney Rule, and this comes from hiring football players in the States, trying to make them more diverse. So that can be applied also to the business world, and the idea is that the candidates is 50-50. Okay, so you don't have to be 50-50 at the end, because then you can get into problems, because normally in STEM careers, the number of resumes you get from women, and in my field is dramatic, it's 20 versus 80%. So you cannot say, okay, let's end up in 50-50 from the start, but the candidates, you can try to make them 50-50. So since we implemented that, the first year, 40% of the manager positions in BBVA were assigned to women, and we've gone from 20% top level management women to 32% this year, which is, again, it's not 50-50, but I think we are going in the right direction. It will take time.
And what can we as individuals do? No, because sometimes we tend to delegate like this need to the corporations, the companies, the government. As individuals, what small changes can we do to try and promote this change? You were telling us about how you talk to your daughters, to your son too. So what kind of actions can we take as individuals?
I think we covered already a lot of these actions, and I think we started talking about this confidence aspect, right? Each of us, let's have confidence on our abilities, on ourselves, and let's also take and assume risk. I think at our level, this is important. Talk about this as give visibility to the topic, right? As we are doing today, I think it's important and great to see so many people here, because this is a matter that matters to all of us, not only to women. It's really a common topic, and I think also from an organizational standpoint, there's a lot of things to do, but also as individuals, we can also do a lot of things. So.
I think it has been mentioned already. I'm not going to repeat, but I would add that we need to focus on showing what is the real impact with examples. No? So, for instance, in my world, the fact that the huge majority of people that are programming algorithms in the world are men has a consequence, and probably they don't. It's not that they have I want to do this algorithm just to be good for men. No, this is not what they think. And I've worked with lots of data scientists, and they are good people, men and women. No, the problem is that if you don't have diversity in these teams programming the systems that are making decisions for us, it's very difficult that you take into consideration different people. In any case, especially, of course, in women, because we are 50%, but in any other diversity aspect, no? So for me, we need to show, okay, what is the problem that specific risk credit algorithm is programmed and validated only with data from men, because, by the way, in banking, when couples have an account, normally the man is the first primer titular, okay, and the women is the second, and that has a bias in the data, for instance. So we need to show with real examples what is the problem and what is the impact of all this happening, which I think we, again, get to very generic concepts. We don't get deep into the consequences that we're facing every day.
Okay, so I'd like to finish by asking you what your recommendations would be, especially for the Esade students here, for female students who might want to pursue a career in the tech sector, or at some point even reach managing positions like you two. What would you tell them?
Well, I think we talk about this, but I would emphasize like 3 points mainly. The first one will be authentic. Be authentic with yourself, with your values, and make sure that you are consistent with what you feel, what you do, and what you, at the end, say, because that will really bring the difference and that will feel you like be happier as well at work. Second topic we discuss, have confidence in yourself and know what you want. Know exactly what is the target that you want to achieve, have your midterm plan and be, courage in taking these aspirations. And last but not least, have a good and a strong network of mentors and sponsors within your organization, but also externally in the rest of the universe. That would really help you to be much more supported throughout your career. Thank you.
So to add and to complement, so first I would say don't miss the opportunity to be in the technology sector in any field, because technology is everything today and it's shaping every single sector and therefore our lives in every aspect. No, so don't miss that opportunity. Try, and then if you don't like, you can change, but don't start by saying no, that's not for me. No, give it up an opportunity. That's first. And second, and I was talking to Irene before, on a book that I recently read, where it's called The Formula, and it's written by a data scientist that does research on graph analytics and networks. No, and the final idea is that success can be anything you want. Your own success or somebody's or a product is based on two things: talent and network. Okay, and talent, I am not talking about the talent you are born with. It's the talent you develop by working hard, by being training and being educated and studying your whole life, trying to learn new things all the time. And we are in Esade, so we are in the good place for that. But so talent, skills, and hard work, and then the network, because the network is what is going to open you the doors that normally are by chance, but that door will lead you to another one and to another one. And when you connect the dots, when you look back, you see that all these situations came from connections that you made at some time of your life. No? So I know that the networking concept is like, I have to go to an event like this and start talking to people. It's not that. It's be open to talk to people, create relationships, ask people about how they are, what they are doing, be interested, and that will open you, I think, doors all the time. So.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us and for you
Thank
to
you so
come.
much, Irene.